all of this stuff in the beginning, I'll be able to cut it off.
Okay.
All right.
We're good? Okay, we're all set. Good evening. It is December 4th, and we do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Our first agenda item for our work session is approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving our agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The agenda is approved. We were having some technical difficulties with live streaming tonight, and so this is a recorded work session, which does not usually happen, but we wanted to make sure the public was able to view it even though it's not happening live. We do have is it an entire Boy Scout troop or those that are working on a
Merit
specific?
badge
A merit badge, excellent.
that your son taught the last go round.
Well, I'm so proud. Excellent, excellent. Just for the members of the public that are here for the Scouts, the state of Minnesota allows, this is an open session where members of the public are here. And then you'll hear, after we talk about this, I will make a motion to go into closed session, which means members of the public can't view it. And there are very few specific things the state allows us to go into closed session for. One of those are legal issues. Another is for negotiation and contracts, and the third is for employee reviews. So we're doing all three of those tonight. So we have a very limited portion of our agenda that's public, but that's what you guys are here for. So once you hear that motion, we're actually going to all leave and go into a separate room, which means you guys get to go home. So I don't think our public portion will take too much time because we're transitioning from one board, and we have 3 brand new board members, which are at the table. They're not technically board members yet, but they will be participating in this subject. One of them is not able to join us tonight. We are going to be discussing roles and committees for our upcoming board, but it will not be voted on until you guys are on the board in January, just from a process perspective. So, the first thing that I wanted to discuss, which I don't see it right now, was we're actually let's see if I can grab it. I'm probably going to mess this up.
Go back.
Go back?
Yeah.
Are you gonna help me, Dan? I might have messed up the page that we needed to take a look at. We're going to discuss,
Yeah. That
yeah, that one right there. Thank you. Perfect.
Dan must have earned his merit badge.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought we'd actually discuss the committees first, and I know that I've met with all of our brand new board members. Sorry, I'm just going to grab my water. And have proposed committees for next, that would start in January based on interest. Who would make sense to be the chair of the committee? But this is all open for feedback. Part of it is to make sure everybody is on 2 committees, but not overwhelm anybody. Michael also represents us for District 287, which does take a significant amount of time. And so this was, like I said, my effort just to, a starting effort to put people in different committees that I thought, honestly, any of our committees are great places to get experience. I think I've sat on all of them except finance, which is not my strong suit, I'll be honest. So the first one I have finance and facilities. The chair of finance and facilities is also the board's treasurer. And then I have Jen and I have Elliot joining Michael on finance and facilities. Governance, the board chair is the chair of governance. Then I have Karen and I have Dan joining governance. Policy, I have Karen as the chair of policy, with Michael and Jen joining policy. Me as the chair of teaching and learning, with Cheryl and Elliot joining teaching and learning. And then this could be up for discussion. I couldn't remember this actually, Julie and Dan. I put 2 board members in LAC as opposed to 3. I couldn't remember if it was written in policy that we have to have 3. But I put Aram and Cheryl in LAC just because I know you've had experience on LAC. And I think we have so many students. I was hoping we could alleviate maybe some, basically we'd have to have one board member be on 3 different committees if we added a 3rd board member there. So
I think that's right.
I was recommending putting 2 on there, but I also wanted to ask you guys
I
about
think it's
that.
fair. I think it's fair to do that. We can enlist somebody on an ad hoc basis.
Yeah, and our bylaws say up to
I
3.
thought so.
So at least 1 up to 3, I think is what the exact words are.
I thought so. So feedback, comments, questions?
Looks good to me.
We have to make it interesting for the scouts here.
Is there like a kind of orientation for each of these committees that, for the new people?
That is a great question. So I would ask whoever's the chair of the committee now, like, so you're the chair of teaching and learning, that you would meet with me if I'm the incoming chair of teaching and learning and sit down and say, this is the process that I've utilized that I think is most effective. This is where we are. This is where we're going. If there's anything that you need to know about. So whoever's the current chair, if you could make an effort to get together with the new chair. And then likewise, if then sort of trickle down, like whoever's the chair, the incoming chair, I think it's incumbent upon you to talk to our new board members about this is sort of what the committee does. This is what we're going to do in the meeting. This is the scope and what our role is to make sure that that's understood. Does that make sense from a process perspective?
Can I add one?
Yeah,
other thing?
absolutely.
So for LAC, we set up a meeting already with Dr. Stanley for the week before the break, I believe. And so Cheryl will send you an invite to that. If you want to come to that, it's basically me and Dan and Dr. Stanley and Holly Bowles talk about the transition of the LAC, but I think that'd be great for you to be there.
Is there a legislative breakfast again in January?
There is a breakfast. Pretty much everything has been set in terms of the logistics of things. And we have this incredible group of students from the high school that are just super excited and super capable. And then we have some leaders from last year too, some students that already know the drill. And so I think it'll be, we're trying to make it as manageable as possible for that. So that meeting is already set up. And then for policy, I know I'm not chair anymore, but Karen, if Regina's not available and you want to meet, but you've been on policy, so whatever I can do to help.
And you've already spent a year as treasurer as well.
Yes.
So I know you, so that should be an easy transition.
Yeah.
So, so these are 1-year roles and then we'll have the exact same meeting almost a year from now. So we can decide, does everyone want to shift? Do they feel they need another year experience on these committees? That's a discussion that we'll have a year from now. And then the only other thing I would ask is if people have a certain day and time that they absolutely cannot meet, to let Stacy know so she can let our administrators know, because we already have weekly meetings that are set up. If we need to shift those based on your guys' schedules, just let Dr. Stanley know so we can make sure that we're able to match everyone's schedule as best that we can.
I think the one thing I would add is that, even though you're not participating on a particular committee, and so you're entrusting that your fall board members are doing that along with administration and so on and so forth. I think what I've liked about our process up to this point is that we've all had rotations on different parts, including what you're seeing here tonight is that there are rotations for each of us to get some new experience to something. I really like that about what Chair Allenberg is doing in terms of making sure we all have it, because all this is important and we're all going to get reports and take actions on all these different elements. But I really like how we're getting a little bit of different flavors from that standpoint. And, you know, whether you're the leader of it or not, I think it's just a matter of the participation is really important. So I appreciate that kind of flow. I think that's really helpful for the overall function of the board.
And I don't know how much incoming training they've had, but these committees usually meet once a month. And they, at this point, have set dates, so that's where, you know, Jen, as the chair of policy, I'll touch base with you to make sure that those dates, you have those dates sooner rather than later, so you can get those on the calendar and then let us know if, you know, if there's conflicts and sometimes that happens, you know, there's times where you can't make one or whatever, but if it's a consistent thing, then we can hopefully figure that out.
Did they get policy 213 with training with this? That would be I would recommend reading that as our
Yes,
school board committee policy.
they did. I can't remember if we did. Yes,
Yep.
we did look over it. Yep.
It's just super helpful.
Anything else on committees? And if you guys, new board members, if you leave here and you're like, I really want to know X, Y, and Z, reach out to your mentor, reach out to me, reach out to one of the board members that's in the board, whatever you guys need, feel free. Moving on to our roles, we have our current roles in the green column right there, and then proposed for January 2024. I didn't want to slate people. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to put everyone's name in a role. I just felt uncomfortable doing that. I will say that I, unless someone objects, would plan on being chair next year. Not because I think I'm the only one that can be chair. I think it's more a issue of getting people to get some more experience on the board, which is something that the reason that both Michael, Karen, and Dan, I think, are all rotating through governance. I think it's super important that we build leadership capacity. So that's intentional. And that is one thing that I want to talk about at our January retreat, which is the role of the chair. What skills do we feel people need to do? Do we need to limit the scope of the chair? I think that's an important conversation that we need to have for the longevity of leadership of the board, because we do have a lot of newer board members, and if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, we need to make sure that we have people that are prepared to be leaders. That's very important to me. So I plan on having that as part of our agenda in January. But if someone has an objection to that, I mean, you can tell me offline. We're not voting until January. You guys can stage a meeting. So, as far as vice chair, I know a couple of people have expressed somewhat guarded interest in this role. So I don't know if there's been any discussion offline about that. I know, Michael, you'll be treasurer as chair of finance. So the difference between one of you two needs to be vice chair and one of you needs to be clerk. So I don't know if you guys have had a conversation.
We have, after some thumb wrestling.
I will be taking the clerk role.
I thought that might be the case, but I didn't want to say so.
Oh.
Okay.
Dan will be bringing me pizza for a year.
And then the three remaining roles are assistant treasurer, assistant clerk, and another assistant clerk. And these are fill-in positions. If Michael's not there, if our clerk's not there. I talked to Elliot beforehand, and he doesn't have a strong opinion about any of these roles. I don't know if you guys have a strong opinion about.
I do not.
Well, clearly the assistant treasurer should be on the finance committee, so.
Yes, so I don't know, Jen, putting you as assistant treasurer, and then Elliot and you guys can be assistant clerks.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Fine.
alrighty. Okay, so that just leaves our, okay, now how do I get to the next page? This
Hit
is
the
where,
minimize the little
this is where I get thrown off.
X in the corner.
Okay, this X?
No, to the right.
This guy.
Oh, this one.
And then hit the agenda.
Okay, thank you. For the liaisons and reps, all the yellow ones are ones that had existing board members that are going off the board. I'm yellow. The easiest thing to do is just put put board members coming on the board in these spots, but we obviously do have the opportunity to move people around. If a new board member is super interested in something else, we can shift people around. Dan, I already put you into AMSD since you're going to be
That's fine.
in charge of LAC. So that leaves a spot for MSBA, Minnesota School Board Association, Talent Development, a Student Voice Liaison, Special Education Advisory Committee. Dan and I were filling in for Michael because District 287 was the same night as Michael, which I'm fine continuing doing that, but I just wanted to leave it open for discussion for tonight. An open spot on World's Best Workforce. Karen, you would join Meet and Confer. Community Ed Services. And then Elliot said he would like to do one of the school sites, which he would be at the middle school then because he does have a student at Cornelia.
Is it
Does he have a fifth grader?
Well, it's only, oh,
Well, we'd have to change it.
we're gonna have to
June.
change.
Yeah. But we
anyway.
could start there.
Yeah, maybe have him
And I
start
think
there.
Jen would be the only one that could take that elementary site too.
Oh, yeah, you are. So Jen,
Excellent.
there we go. So let's see, so we have. So that if we go back to the top, MSBA, Dan, what's the time commitment for MSBA?
It's relatively minimal. There's a weekly, or sorry, for regular call, like kind of a coffee and they call it just a virtual meeting. And then you can go in person. I've never gone in person.
So it's like a once a month.
Yeah.
Virtual meeting.
Yeah.
So that's a once a month virtual meeting. Talent development, are they meeting monthly, Jamie?
No.
Okay, they meet periodically, I would say. Student voice, that's something that is not really a liaison role in the sense that you're meeting on a monthly basis. That's something that you're going to be gathering information about if the board wants to gather more student voice, in what way do you recommend doing that? So it's almost like a research assignment. Special education is once a month for about 2 hours. World's Best Workforce is,
I think it's like quarterly or
Quarterly.
every other month.
There's
We meet
four meetings
tomorrow.
throughout the year.
Yeah, so it's quarterly.
and the same with community ed services.
Or is it?
So I'm, like I said, I'm happy, and I think it'd probably be good for Seek if Dan and I can take a month. Seek, if you guys are okay with that.
And I can always come to that on the Thursdays when it, 'cause every now and then, the way the schedule works is that some Thursdays, it's not during, 287 meetings. And so I can just come as to fill in. I'd like to still stay involved in it, but I would just be a fill-in.
Yeah, for sure.
And then as far as MSBA goes, given that I've dropped out of Seek and whatever it is, if something needed to happen with MSBA, I certainly, if there's not an allocation, I'd be happy to pick that up. Cause I believe, Crystal Brackey is from Richfield, who's the chair of 287, is one of the executive leaders of MSBA. So I'm happy to do that if necessary, but if someone else wants exposure to that, I'll give you a second to that if necessary.
Do either of you just really want MSBA or?
Do you know
Why don't we,
what
why don't
even know
you,
what MSBA
let's
is?
put you in for MSBA and then let's see how it. What about talent development? This meets periodically. I would say talent development and community ed services meet probably quarterly.
Talent development would good for somebody who's not teaching and learning to be a part of. There's a pretty strong correlation.
I did. Okay. So we have the student voice liaison. Is somebody interested in, and again, this could be an existing board member, and we could shift you off of something to put you in that spot, or we could put Elliot in that spot. We
You know, when you're not here.
So,
I could do community ed or students earlier.
And community ed meetings are generally early in the morning. Like,
those are also important too. Yeah.
like a beginning of work time. Just let me know. Is there more stuff that you guys worked on above, just so I can see? Or not?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just want to make sure I don't miss it.
Why don't, go ahead.
If I need
What
to
is the
do
breakdown right now?
No.
Who's the other? Elliot has.
I have Elliot on just the middle schools right now. So why don't we try adding Elliot to it and maybe you can help him with that at the beginning?
You're talking community ed or you're talking?
I was talking student voice.
Sure.
Talent development, special education. So then, Jen, would you prefer to do world's best workforce with Karen or community ed?
I would be interested in community ed, no offense, Karen.
No offense taken.
It's a fun, that's a fun. So they're very-
So I have Jen on 2 new, Elliot on 2 new, Cheryl on 2, right? Or do I have you on 1?
Just one.
Oh, then do you want to do world's best workforce? That would actually be good correlation with teaching.
We're teaching. Sure, let's do it. It's quarterly. Our first meeting's tomorrow.
I got noticed here.
But you don't have to come. You don't have to come, but I can fill you in on what we talk about.
I will be attending.
When is it tomorrow?
It's like 4, right? It's like 4 o'clock, 4 to 5:30 or 6.
Yeah, you can go as a community member now.
Yeah.
We'll chat.
Okay,
Outline.
all right.
So I have Dan AMSD, Michael MSBA, Karen Ed Fund, Cheryl Talent Development, Elliot with a little help from Dan for Student Voice, Erica Cultural Liaison, Eric and Dan for Seek, Karen and Cheryl World's Best Workforce, Erica and Karen Meet and Confer, Jen Community Ed, City Council Erica and Michael, Karen ELC, ECSC, Dan Elementary 1, Jen Elementary 2, Elliot Middle School, and then Michael EHS.
Is that a pretty equal divide? Do you have to, I mean, if your load as chair is a lot.
I
What do
took
you need
myself
to-
off community ed because of that issue. I think I'm fine because I'm not doing any schools at all. So,
And then if people are divided equally.
does that sound good for everyone?
Yeah.
And this, we revisit these in the summer also, so. Okay. All right. So we'll be voting on these if we have had people switch between now and January, but we try not to. Just to not surprise people, but that's all for this part of the agenda.
What about the PSV? Anything with that?
That's just the calendar that
Okay.
of when people are visiting. So, yeah. Any questions?
One thing for the new board members in January, if you haven't been alerted to it already, but MSGA does their annual conference in St. Paul, and it's worthwhile, even if you can just come for.
Don't they have to go to the
Convention center.
Yeah.
You've been signed up for that already?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Nice job. Ms. Nass, over there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm now going to make a motion to go into closed session. Pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D05 subdivision 3B. The board is able to go into closed session with the school board's legal counsel related to litigation that has been threatened against the district. The school board seeks legal advice on the status of the matter, alleged claims against the district, and the district's attorney analysis of the same, and the district's options for responding to such claims. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of going into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? The motion passes, and we are now going to go into closed session.
Weird.
on May 16th.